Welcome to the Win Make Give podcast. Chad Hyams here, completely out of languages that I can pronounce, that I won't just have the same thing, right? I can say hola, yet that's like a whole bunch of languages, Bob. So Bob Stewart, welcome to Win Make Give.
Hey, thanks for having me. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Hey, there you go. Have you ever called into a radio show where that line actually would have applied back in the day? I don't know if they still do call-in shows.
Yeah, so one time in my entire life, I called into a radio show. I was waiting to pick my son up. This was probably 10 years ago. Kellen was playing baseball. I'm just sitting in the parking lot. I got a half hour left. And Walter Jones, who's like a Pro Bowl left tackle for the Seahawks, was on like some local sports radio show. And I don't know, I gave the number, call and ask Walter a question. And so I called and I asked him, I don't even know why. I think my question was like, was there anybody that wasn't related to you kind of growing up, a teacher or a coach, somebody like that had like a major impact on your life and, that you would like to say thank you to, and you never really had a chance? That was the question I asked him. He gave a really good answer to it. It was like one of the best answers. He almost like got choked up. It was kind of cool. But I didn't do that. I should have. I didn't.
You didn't say.
I'm a long-time listener. I've been listening to that sports radio station my entire life, basically, sure. Right? But,
it would have been, and there you were, even back then, Bob, coming from contribution, looking for gratitude as you asked that question of him. I was attempting to remember, and here I am. As you were talking, I was like, I called into the Dan Patrick show once.
Really?
Yeah, long-time listener, first-time caller. You're supposed to give your weight back then if you were listening. They rang the little bell, right? If you were a long-time listener and truly knew that you used to say your fighting weight and all that. I have no idea why I called, what motivated it. I have no idea what they were talking about that got me fired up enough to pick up the phone to call. Yet I remember calling into the Dan Patrick show.
Look, when I was real little, Chad, back in the day, right? Like I would 5th, 6th, 7th grade or whatever, you would call in to try to get a song played on the radio. That's or right. Be the 8th caller or whatever, right? Like, so I've definitely.
Did you ever win?
No, I never won. A
good friend of mine did. They did a contest in my hometown on the radio. I don't remember how much money it was. They would announce a birthday in the morning, and the first person that called in that was their birthday won. I don't remember if it was $1,000, $5,000. It wasn't just like $20 or something like that. And one of my friends who I hope does not listen to the podcast because he'll fly to Florida and deck me. He was the guy every morning that would come into school and go, "Hey, who do we know that was born on?" Because he was the guy who always listened to it. And the day they called his birthday, he slept in. And he missed it. So he showed up at school. We were all singing happy birthday to him all day. I'm pretty sure he punched me in the gut that day when I called him on it. And he'd probably punch me in the gut today if he had the chance.
So one time in college in the summertime, I used to have this job. I would work with a friend of mine named Ryan. And he called in. We were in Yakima, Washington. It was like the middle of nowhere, basically, listening to a local radio station there on the morning. We had worked nights. So we're in the morning. They play a song and it's like, if you can guess who the artist is, you get tickets. We're going to give you I don't even know if they said what it was. So he called in. It was John Cougar Mellencamp. He called in. He got on the radio immediately. He's like, "That's John Cougar Mellencamp." And they're like, "What are you doing tonight? Do you want to go to the concert?" Well, his concert was at the Gorge that night. And so we literally went home, went to bed, got up, drove to the Gorge. Here's the crazy. So we're late getting to the Gorge, Chad. We pull into the Gorge. The band leading up, the warm-up band or whatever is on stage. When we pull into the Gorge, I'm like, I'm just going to try to get us as best the parking we can. And so we kind of make our way up. We're in line behind this bus. It's his bus, John Cougar Mellencamp's bus. So when we get up to this gate, my buddy Ryan's just like, "Yeah, we're with the bus." They let us follow the bus in. So, we weren't as daring. We probably could have ended up backstage. We were just like, "Oh, this is awesome. Like, great parking spot." And then out to our regular seats or whatever. But anyway.
Folks, the lesson from that, act as if, right? We could probably do a whole episode just on that topic. Not what we're here to talk about today. Act as if. People always say, "I'm not supposed to be here." Act as if.
You know what's funny? My 7-year-old is totally an act as if-er. He moves through life as if this should be his place in line. It's really fascinating to watch from just I'm like, this is like, you were born this way, like I don't know. His mom's this way too, but anyway.
Bob, start thinking about a story when you acted as if, other than following the bus. That might be a future episode that we have to create now to help people act as if a little better. Yet that's not what we're here to talk about
Chad,
today.
let's leave that whole conversation behind. Let's just get rid of it. Let's light it on fire.
Here we go. Bob attempting to segue for us.
There you go. Did I do it?
Bob, forget the segue because I'm opening the curtains and showing everybody what happens behind the scenes and how bad Comcast is. Because we've done this episode before. Yet while we were recording it, Comcast gave you glitches on your internet and Dave was unable to restore the audio. So while it's our second time, audience, it's your first time on the topic that we're going to cover today.
By the way, that was the final straw with Comcast for me. Like we went and got Ziply fiber shortly after that. So I don't even have Comcast anymore. They can't do this to us again.
And audience, we haven't had an issue since. Sponsored by every company that's not Comcast here on the Win Wake Give podcast. We could get in trouble, but hey, it's my personal belief of their service they provided. All right, Bob. So this was one you came to us with on this topic. You said, Chad, there's this expression, and I really want to dive into it a little. So why don't you introduce what we're going to talk about, what was behind it for you, and then we'll take it from there.
Well, so the topic is burn the boats. So this concept of burning the boats, which like historically is kind of the person giving credit for this is Cortez, and they were, Spanish conquerors, and they were conquering, they were marauding essentially over Southern America, and his men had landed on the shore. And they had, an objective to go conquer the Aztecs. And they had decided when they landed at shore that the only way they were going to get this done is if they had no other options but to like march ahead and win. And so as the story goes, upon arrival on the shores, Cortez made his men burn the boats, Chad. Right. They literally burned their ships that they'd sailed in with, leaving them no options for retreat. They had basically, there was an outcome. They were going to win or they were going to lose, but they were going to fight. There was going to be no other option.
Right. You ever want to go home again? We need their boats. So we better win because we have no way to get off this land.
Now, where this came up in our world recently is we, in our sales organization and just kind of the nature of real estate sales, residential real estate sales, Chad, it's very common to have people kind of dip their toes into it as they keep a backup job. Right. And so just this idea of this had been floating around in my head. So I thought maybe let's make an episode of this because there's definitely some listeners out here in our world right now that are holding on to something as a safety net as they try to go tackle something, big, something amazing, something that would really move the needle on their life, but they're hanging on to that safety vest. And so we just wanted to maybe share with them some reasons why taking that leap of faith is, could be the thing they need to do.
Absolutely. And we've all heard many times your son is going to be a future NBA celebrity, right? We know that's
he's got a lot of work in front of him, but
sure does. Yet the question is, does he have plan B? Because if he has plan B, is that actually hurting plan A?
It's funny.
Right? Does he say, well, if I don't make the league, I'm going to be, the next rap sensation, or I'm just going to be.
His mother's making sure that he's got straight A's. He's a really smart little boy. So she's making sure. And we have that discussion with him, actually. And it's kind of one of these, like, she wants to make sure he has a plan B. And I'm like, you're going to get good grades anyway. So just go do that, right? Stay focused on your thing. So I think there's a battle there probably in our little household over whether he should have a plan B or not. The reality is I think if he does the right things, his plan B will be there.
Sure.
Right.
And absolutely. I mean, we've talked with David Nurse, to use the basketball example, right? His plan A was, I'm going to be a professional basketball player. And he did play professionally overseas and all of it. Yet, when the plan did not make it, right? When the boats were burned and there was no going back, then he said, okay, now I need to figure out a plan B because now I'm stranded on this island. I don't have a boat. I put everything into it. I only got this far. Then he became a shooting coach and
Yeah,
then
he'd
created
done the work to where there were options now at that point, Chad.
correct.
Even though he had burned the boats, right? That's a guy that went all in on basketball. Like everything that he did and everything he became was that, and he was able to find another option that wasn't his number one. But would he have been able to do that had he never had that big goal and kind of put everything towards that? I
That's an
don't think so, by the
excellent,
way.
excellent question, right? So, folks, we're talking about whether it's athletic performance, right? Are you all in on something or are you half assing it because you know that you've got that backup plan? Is it business? Is it some sort of entrepreneurial adventure you're about to get into? Is it some sort of, oh, there's always the exit door? I can always pull the parachute, ripcord, whatever that's going to be for you. We're here to talk to you today about burning the boats to lead you to success. So, Bob, first thing we have to do is,
What do you mean?
well, what would step one be if we're going to burn the boats?
Oh, I got to know what the boats are.
Absolutely, right? We got to be able to say there's literally the boat, or be able to say here's what that boat looks like.
Yeah, I mean, look, sometimes it's really easy to identify, Chad. It's that job, right? Like it's the job I go to from that pays me a mediocre salary, but I'm comfortable, right? Like sometimes it's really easy. I think other times it's maybe not. Like I think back. Well, this one we had a point in our career where we had launched a company. We had two companies, and one of them paid all the bills, and the other one was like the promise of the future. And we were stuck between this idea of like, it wouldn't have been obvious to me back at that time that burning the boats meant to sell the company that was generating all the revenue. Like that wouldn't have even been on the table likely at that point, because then me would have been like, well, and then me was saying this when my partner was like, we should sell the real estate company. I was like, what? It pays all the bills. And he's like, yeah, but it's going to force us to figure out a revenue model for this other company. And I'm like, really? Yep. But how are we going to pay the bills? Like, so that was a big step. But at the time, I wasn't able to identify that was the boat to burn. My partner,
it's
my mentor
usually
was.
Easy in 2020 hindsight, right? To be able to say, oh yeah, look at the big boat on the horizon right there. Yeah. It's very clear. Sometimes when you're in it, you don't want to identify it, folks. And that's the challenge. It's not that you can't identify it, because Bob absolutely could have back then. He didn't want to acknowledge that was the boat that I'm just leaving it floating off the coast. You don't know that one's there. So even though we burn these boats, there's always the escape boat. Right.
Yeah. I mean, if you think, Chad, about like what happens in that scenario, right, and this is why this kind of half commitment to things is hurting us, is like, take the example of we have two companies, right? It's the same group of humans that were like involved in these endeavors. So our focus is split between those two things.
Yep.
Our resources, like we had 3 developers back then, right? And we had two products that they could develop on.
1.5 developers, really.
Yeah, if we kept them both, like the new thing was never going to get the attention that it required to get it to be successful. And the reality is, splitting our time on those things, what was happening, and it didn't happen for long because Jonathan was able to kind of identify it and say, we've got to get rid of that other boat, right? That business, we've got to find a buyer for it. But what was happening is neither one of them were being run as efficiently or as effectively as they could have been had we focused on either one of them.
And isn't that what usually happens with a boat, right? If you want to be an entrepreneur, you mentioned earlier, people want to get into the real estate industry, yet they hold on to their job while they're kind of dipping their toe into it. Okay, are you a good employee at your other job anymore? No, because you're distracted. You're thinking about the real estate opportunities. Maybe your schedule, you're changing because you've got to go deal with stuff that comes up, and it can be any industry that you're getting into. And then are you really committed to the new industry? No, because your time is being taken away that you could be using and all of that. You're sitting there dipping your toe, as you had said. You've got lots of boats floating behind you to be able to burn them. Folks, maybe it's a relationship, right? You've always got kind of that safety net person in your world that, well, if this dating doesn't work out, there's always such and such. She's always been such a great friend and all that, right? And there's keeping those relationships, which, Bob, you went through something like that, if I remember you telling the story first time.
I did, yeah. I mean, that was I that was my dating experience from the point when I was probably 16 years old, Chad, till I was like 34, I think, when I met my wife. Like, I always had a couple of options, right?
Sure.
And those options were there when I met my wife, by the way. And very quickly, I was like, okay, like, I don't need those options anymore, right? Like, I'm going all in on this one.
Right.
And but there was like, in a few instances, a purposeful call made, because these were relationships that I still, like, they were nice people and good, but I did need to like sever them in that way, right? And I don't know. I mean, I'd never done it before, and I'd never been able to find never been able to be in that relationship in a good way, and so that was important for me to go back and like cut those things off.
And I remember when Nita and I got serious about our health years back and said, okay, we're really good. We actually had somebody who worked with our trainer come into our house and go through our closets and our pantry and say, nope, nope, nope. And like donated or threw out so many things that we had that we shouldn't had. Yet, Bob, I'll tell you, to this day, they didn't know that in the wine fridge in the back, we hid some chocolate. Right. We kept that boat sailing in the background there and said, well, we've got that. It wasn't until we started to feel a little more confident with the success that we went, okay, we can burn the boat. We don't need to replace that chocolate. So folks, the boats are there. Take the blinders off, because the only reason you're not able to identify the boat is because you don't want to admit that that is a boat that needs to be burned for you to move forward and have the success.
All Chad, right. I'm going to, so first step, what's the boats, right? Yep. Like, what are those things that the second step, I'm going to maybe just dabble in this one really quickly and move on. Easy. Because I think, it's commit publicly. We've talked about this in different scenarios where we've talked about like creating a habit or, yep. Making a lifestyle change or whatever. There's some previous podcasts where I think we dive a little bit, but hey, if like you're burning the boats, let people know.
Yeah,
like Cortez didn't go burn them in
fire, right?
Yeah, Cortez didn't burn them in secret while everybody was sleeping at night, right? I'm sure they all stood on the shore and were like, well, there they go. Yep. He made sure everybody knew. But
the more that know, the more likely people are there to support you in the goal of the boats are gone, right? You're absolutely right. Commit publicly to it is what Bob has for us as step 2. Bob, let's get right into step 3 then.
Just remove the safety nets. And I think you were talking like your little chocolate in the back. That was the safety net for you guys, right? Yeah. You're like, well, we can commit to being healthy, but sometimes we might want a snack. So we're going to keep this little safety net in the background.
Yep. How many people out there are in a committed relationship, yet if we stole your phone, I would find somewhere on there a dating app still.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not saying you've been married 5-10 years. Heck, maybe you have been, and there's a dating app on your phone. But could I go through your phone and find one of those dating apps, or are the profiles even still up on those dating apps you used, even though the app might be deleted off your phone because it's still there, right? That's the safety net that Bob's talking about.
Okay, number 4 then. Build systems that are going to sustain that new commitment that I'm focused on.
Tell me what you mean. I mean, for in the example, when Cortez burned the boats, it was, okay, now we go to war, right? Yeah. We had a system for battle. We're not doing that now.
So I think about our go back to our business scenario where we had to burn the boat, and the boat was a cash cow, right? Like the boat, we knew that this other thing was a really good idea. We thought it was going to make money. But we didn't have a revenue model on this thing. And so when we burned those other boats, Chad, immediately our number one focus until we solved it was, how are we going to find revenue? Like, where's the revenue at from this new opportunity? And it was just an incredible amount of focus on that one thing, right? So it wasn't a system necessarily, as every day we came in and that's all we did all day, right? Now I think about like, if I was leaving, like, oh, let's go back to residential real estate sales, right? If I was going to give up the job, I better be stepping in to an environment where there's a clear path to go do or get what I want.
Yes.
Right? Like, I think about Place. Obviously, our business has a really awesome model that people can plug into. And my mom kind of did this when she got back into real estate. In theory, her and her husband, my stepdad, Grant, they were burning the boats. Grant was retiring from being a commercial fisherman. Like, almost literally he could have burned the boat. Now he didn't, right? Like the boat was leased by somebody and whatever, but there was no chance for him to go back and get on the boat and create an income next year for them. And they had a couple of years where they needed to have income until they got to that retirement age, right? So my mom stepping in said, I need to she's stepping into real estate. I need to step into a model. So she stepped into Ben Kinney's model and just said, okay, they say if this is what you do, this is what I do. And she went and did that thing. So you don't always have to create a model for this or build the system yourself, Chad. I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs jump into franchise ownership. Why? Because there's a model they can step into, right? They're leaving that old job, they're stepping into a model because they know they want to go, replace that income quickly. But step 4 is get some systems in place. And for us on that original job, the system was just every day for 8 hours, we worked on revenue. Like that was the system, right? Pretty archaic and simple, but it worked.
Yeah, I had a mentor in my world, Bob, that said to me when it came to using your example, residential real estate sales, said, do you have 6 months of your expenses in the bank? Right? That was a system that would sustain my commitment. So for 6 months, I didn't have to worry about where was the money going to come from. I had saved up the money that was there so I could now do the task, do the work, do the focus, knowing that in 6 months I should get a return on my investment that would then replace the depleted funds that I'd gone through at the time. Yet I didn't need to dip my toe in because I had another career, because I was in a position that I had built up, as you say, these systems so that you can focus on the commitment. Maybe it's hiring a coach where, yeah, it's going to cost you money. So you're going to be sitting there saying, well, wait a minute, I'm giving this money to somebody else to help me get where I'm going. I better do what they're telling me to do. That might be your system, right? It's whatever you're looking for. We're not literally saying a system has to be here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3. Yet a system that will sustain the commitment. So you're not sitting there every day going, maybe I can just swim all the way back now that the boat is burnt. I can still give up. There's still a plan B. If you're going in, go all in, Bob.
Chad, I will tell
Yes.
you some of the most successful things that I've been a party to in my life have been the result of having to make really hard decisions to like burn the boats
Yep.
on the way to them. And looking back at all those things again, you said, when you look back, it's real obvious what the boat was, but it's also in many ways obvious to me that had we not done that, we probably would not have been successful, both personally and professionally.
And Bob, if you look back at your failures personally and professionally, it's because there was a gigantic boat just sitting at the dock.
Every single time.
Right?
Every
I
single
know
time.
I took on an opportunity that I failed at because there was always a plan B just there. Like we were literally in the shadow of the sails of that boat doing the task and saying, well, I can always just get right back on the boat. I don't need this. It's just, it would be great if it worked, right? Well, it didn't work. Why? Because it's never going to work when we're sitting there. Now, if you're an entrepreneur and you're building multiple opportunities, get one up and running, let someone else captain that ship, sail it away while you build the next one. It's not saying you can't have multiple projects going. The businesses that you had back then you were giving, Bob, could have both survived with you. You guys sold one, yet you could have just focused on it, built it
Absolutely.
up, and then turned around and said, okay, that's running without us. We can fully go to
Hey,
this.
we had a whole bunch of decisions to make in that regard, Chad. And the reason, like, we could have done that. It's just we wanted that capital a little faster than it would have come out of the business had we kept the ownership of it and brought somebody in to run it. But yeah, we totally could have done that. You said something about the 6 months of reserves. Like this is a great plug for the Wealth series. Somebody reached out to me yesterday. Chad said she was going to be taking a group of her sphere through the Wealth series. Allison Glenny, shout out to Allison. But the Wealth series, everybody who did that and really kind of took it to heart is going to have those 4 months. I think we just talked 4 months of reserves. Although we also had a whole discussion about how some of you might have 6 because you want a little bit more security there. But anybody listening today has probably got their 4 to 6 months of reserves already.
And if you have no idea what Bob Stewart's talking about, go to winmakegive.com/wealth. You'll get access to the workbooks. You'll get links to the direct episodes that are still out there. If you've gone through it, it's been too long. It's time for you to go through the Wealth series again, because as we talk in the Wealth series, some of those activities are monthly, some are quarterly. And I'm going to bet a lot of you out there didn't burn the boat. So you've just given up on the Wealth series instead of saying, I got to go back and look at that stuff again. winmakegive.com/wealth. Let us help you change your life, because it's health, wealth, leadership, and legacy that we talk about here. Bob, any last words before the embers go down on that ship in the ocean there that is on fire behind us?
I would say if you need help with a lighter, reach out to our boy Chad. He's like a friggin' pyromaniac over there. He's lighting boats on fire for people every day. If you need a coach to get you, across the I don't know, that threshold, right, of lighting the boats on fire. Chad, I heard you're like just standing by with a blowtorch.
Well, my company is Ember Seminars.
Hey, that's the start of the fire.
There you go, right? It's the start of a potential fire or the end of one as it's coming. Folks, there you go. Go figure out what the boats are that are floating behind you that you can burn immediately, so that success is the path you're going to take, because it's the only path available to you. Until our next episode, as always, do good.